Hello everyone, welcome to our first ever Playbook. It's a dream that a couple of us pastors had about helping and relating to pastors who are out there and have no one to relate to and to talk to. And it was a dream. I kind of had that job for years of helping pastors. And it's such a needed thing that they need somebody to talk to, somebody they can trust. And we're going to get into that in just a little bit. I have a couple of guests with me today that are part of this, a big part of what we're doing, and I'll let them introduce themselves.
Well, I'm Errol Hainer, and I've had the privilege of serving with Ricky in the past. And as a matter of fact, I served beside him. He was in one church and I was another with another group. And we enjoyed our conversation, our relationship. And after I was completely done about 7 years ago, and with the ministry I was at, I helped develop Pray Amarillo, which is a prayer center here in Amarillo, Texas. And in the process of doing that, Ricky reached out to me and he said, "Hey, I'm doing other things right now. I'd like to just have coffee." And I sat down with Ricky and I said, we need to really gather some guys who do ministry. Part of the reason was I kind of got off on my own, and I needed somebody else with me. It's not because I needed somebody to guide me so much, but I needed camaraderie with other pastors who were going through some of the same things. And so the last 7 years, we planted Pray Amarillo, and we've been a part of that. And we're going to do a lot of things in Amarillo that's a little different, but it's a little different than a church, as we would say. But it interacts with other ministries, and just to be honest, that's why I'm connected to you guys.
Well, and I've been to your church, so I know it felt like church. You preached and had worship, so it felt really good. But it is a vision that I have that I know when I first started out, I didn't know who to talk to. I didn't have anybody to help me. I never did. I had never done a funeral. I'd never done a wedding. When I got in love with Jesus and started pastoring, it dawned on me, I'm going to have to do weddings, funerals. And then I'm like, who's going to help me? And so I'm finding that all pastors need somebody to help them to be in that, if you will, with a pilot in an airplane. We all need somebody in that other seat that knows more about it than we do. That instructor, if he hadn't have been in that seat, I would have crashed several times while I was getting my student license. So I'm going to introduce Robert Burton, is another great friend of mine, and he's in ministry, and I'll just let him tell you about his ministry.
I'm Robert Burton. I'm from here in Amarillo, fairly new to this group. I've known Errol for a number of years, and it's two great friends of mine here. I'm kind of multifaceted. I do pastor a church called Yes Lord here in Amarillo, kind of more of an inner city type ministry. We're in the middle of a neighborhood, kind of original Amarillo area. And then I'm also the executive director for the local homeless shelter, Faith City Mission. And so most of my focus when it comes to ministry and leadership are the least, the last, and the lost. Those who have been overlooked or those who have come on some hard times. And I've just found over the years, even in my own ministry, you've got to have people alongside of you. You don't have all the answers, and you've got to have people that, one, will encourage you when the times are hard, but you also have to have people that will hold you accountable. They'll cover your blind spots for you, and they'll correct you when needed, but they correct you with love. And so a setting like this is vitally important, not just to the body, but really for the leaders, for pastors and those that are in those positions, to know that you're not the only one. You're not alone. Somebody else has faced what you're facing, or they may not have been there, but we can come alongside of each other and navigate it together. And so it's vitally important for pastors to find a safe place with one another.
It's exactly right, Robert. I found out when I was I started in a little town called Sanford, Texas. The sign said population 218 people. There were 30 people coming. I'd never even read most of the Bible, never had read the Old Testament. And I'm going to do that someday, by the way. But you know, I did a funeral the Saturday before I did my first sermon. And someone said, man, how did you know to do that? And I said, I lost my mom when I was 24 years old.
There you go.
And I know what people on those first 2 or 3 rows are feeling.
There you go.
And I try to bring compassion like people brought to me. So, but then I found out I needed help, Robert, like you said.
Yeah.
Things I didn't know how to do, things I had started doing that probably I didn't need to be doing, and so it isn't just about doing things. It's also about not doing some things.
Right.
So we have good conversations when we sit down with pastors, and yes, we do leadership. I have all kinds of leadership stuff that I've learned over the years. I can make them sick over leadership things, but what the main goal is to give a pastor who's out there that doesn't have anybody to relate with, anybody to talk to, and man, this can be a place for pastors. The Playbook can be a place that pastors have the freedom to trust you to tell you what's going on, even in their personal life, and beyond that.
Oh yeah, we find pastors who come there. You know, let's be honest. We're not really interested in just sharing everything right off.
Right.
I mean, come on, we're not.
Well, I like telling everybody what.
Yeah, but we judge the room a little bit, don't we? I mean, everybody does, but
sure
pastors are probably a little bit tougher because they know what it's like to be burned
and guarded,
and they're very guarded. And so once you realize that this is not about me teaching you something. Well, I know everything. I went to school for it. You guys didn't. You got to learn from me. When we get past all that junk that pastors seem to put in protocol for each other,
exactly.
Then we realize we're guys who are serving, who've got a calling. Yeah, we may not be in the same. I'm not in the same ministry that Robert is, or even Ricky is, but we have an incredible relationship. And part of the greatest reason it happens like that is because we listen to each other, and we all, every time we've met, we've found something that came up, and we didn't go, well, we'll deal with that later, Robert.
Yeah.
You're hurting there, but I don't want to talk about that because that bothers me. We stopped and took time for that,
Exactly
which was
right.
important. Yeah. And I think sometimes when pastors get together, we got such an agenda that we miss that. And this has been good to do that. We do have some things, but that's not the only thing.
No, not the only thing. And we learned from, like when Robert showed up, I didn't know he was the executive director of Faith City Mission, which is a great outreach to reach people for Jesus. Yeah, he's pastoring, whether he calls it that or not.
All the time.
He's leading a big group of staff and then leading a church, and yet he says, you know what? I need to come to this. I've been looking for something that I could just bounce things off somebody that I trust, and they can say, you know, Robert, I think you're exactly right. You're going down the right trail.
Yeah.
Or he trusts us enough to let us say, you know, Robert, you might think about it like this.
Right.
And then we get a conversation going, and I've met several pastors that are kind of, I'm an extrovert, and there's a lot of pastors that are introverted.
Right.
And it's hard to pull things out of them until they start believing in relationship.
Well, I know for myself, a lot of what we do in ministry, especially for those of us that didn't go, we didn't go to seminary, we didn't do those things. Much of what we do in ministry it's from experience.
Oh, yeah.
We find the biblical concept out of our experiences. Well, as pastors, we always navigate, especially with other pastors, through experience. So for myself, where I've had some negative experiences with other ministry leaders, so when I enter into a room where I know there's going to be other pastors and other leaders, I'm very guarded.
Yeah.
And even when the groundwork of this meeting that we have together started coming up, and Errol had invited me, and I took some days to really pray about it, and I talked to my wife, and she said, this could probably be really good for you. And I told her, I said, my struggle is you get into those roundtable situations and you start opening up. Yeah. You start sharing things, and maybe in the moment people seem to be supportive of you, but you do something they don't like.
Yeah.
You do something that your congregation doesn't like. You do something that an elder doesn't like. And then they weaponize the very personal thing they know about you.
Yeah.
And so now you live your life through the experience of leadership trauma.
Right.
And so now trust is broken.
Right.
And so you struggle stepping into a room. And what I remind all of my staff and my leaders is, when we get a leadership trauma and we leave it undealt with, then what happens is every time I come in contact with a leader, I now put that leader into performance mode. You have to perform for me to prove to me you're not going to hurt me. The problem with that is I'm holding you accountable to something you didn't do, and I'm making you perform and you don't even know it.
Exactly right.
And so then when you fail me, the repercussion is I separate from you and I pull back. Well, now what you have is a very unhealthy leader trying to lead a ministry. Well, your ministry is only as good as your leadership. So if I'm unhealthy and trying to lead from the pulpit and I'm trying to pastor people, then guess what I'm doing? Seed produces after its own kind.
Exactly.
I'm producing that seed in that body. And then we wonder, why does my congregation not trust me? Why do they not trust each other? Because you have a leader with an untrusting spirit based on a trauma that's undealt with, and he won't find people that he can trust and talk with and rely on so that he can get healing, he can be healthy, so he can lead a healthy ministry. And I believe it's probably one of the greatest tactics of the enemy is to separate leadership from one another.
Yeah.
It's not, the church, in my opinion, has had a gangland mentality for so long. It's your territory and Errol's territory and my territory. Don't overstep. And that's not the body. That's not being the body. And it starts with us as leaders coming together and saying, you know what? Let's have real conversations. Let's dig into some things. Right. But let me show you you're safe with me.
Right.
Let me love you, let me encourage you, and let me nurture you so that you can receive what you need to be the leader God has intended for you to be.
Robert, you bring up some great points there. One that really hit me is, guys, we are not denominational.
That's right.
We're not non-denominational. We welcome any pastor.
Yes.
Because we're actually, fishing together. We're all trying to catch fish. And most churches, the sad thing about it, most churches is doing all their fishing in the bait house.
Yeah.
They don't ever get out of the bait house to fish. And I do believe with, 40 years nearly that I've been in ministry, to 35, around this table, if we added it all up, there's a lot of experiences that we can help not just younger pastors, but younger pastors in ministry that maybe got in late like me. I was 41 when I entered into ministry, and I'm now 51. If you believe that,
I was adding it up there. Wait a minute.
Yeah. Or even let me just, not even just a new pastor. What about a seasoned pastor? You've been in the ministry for 40, 45 years. and you've been hurt repeatedly,
Oh, yeah.
and now you don't trust anybody, but you go through the motions. Yes, you're studying and you're reading and you're praying and you're doing those things, but outside of that, you're going through the motions. You put a fake smile on your face and greet the people. You don't want to greet the people. You put on a fake facade and you stand in the pulpit and you preach for all you're worth, but then you leave out of there and you go home and you're depressed and you're despondent and you're disconnected from your family and you want to throw in the towel every single week. I think even those guys need to know, man, you're not alone. You're not the only one that's felt that way, and I think a setting like this, just is fantastic for anybody. If you're a brand new youth pastor and you don't know what you're doing, you need some advice, or you're a guy that's been pastoring for 40 years and you're like, I just want to quit.
Yeah.
I want to give in and give up and throw in the towel and quit, but the Lord won't let you quit, and you're miserable. But you're miserable because you're carrying the hurt alone.
And Robert, we invite the senior pastor because the senior leader, that's who we want to invite, because most pastors are usually having problems with their worship leader, or now these guys are married to their worship leaders, or
my daughter is mine. Our daughter.
These
raised them.
These guys raised their girls to lead worship.
We'd spank them heinies if they got out of line.
but the truth is, you don't want to invite other staff to come with them, because they'll never talk.
That's the deal.
We'll never get to the bottom of issues of any kind. And one of the things I love doing with pastors is writing a problem down, like we did.
Yeah.
We'd all put a problem on a piece of paper, and we'd go around the table letting everybody help us. Maybe it's the parking lot. We need a new parking lot. We don't know what we're going to do. That's the question you throw on the table. And when he leaves, he's got 10 new ideas that he didn't have before he came.
Or sometimes there's, should I move in this? And it's a bad idea.
Yeah.
I mean, gosh, if I had $1 for every time I had a bad idea in ministry and still tried it for a long time until the grace is left, but I'm still doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
I needed somebody to say, you need to stop this because it's not healthy. And I learned to do this when I was young. Well, it wasn't healthy then either, by the way.
Well,
it's part of it.
Well, and John Maxwell says, I loved it years ago. I heard him say it years ago, that, don't start sending your staff to a convention that's teaching how to ride dead horses.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's true.
And he said, the first thing I would do if I had and was riding a dead horse, the first thing I'd do is dismount. It's not working. And along with that, pastors can talk about when people, it's a hard subject, I know, and these guys will have input, but people come and people go.
Yeah,
I mean, you need to know who's coming and who's going. Like if you've got ones, if let's say a 10 is a great leader, they come in, they can lead people, they can do life groups, they can youth, they can do it all. And you've got a bunch of 10s, but all of a sudden, people are going out the back door, and those 10s are going out the back door, and you got a bunch of 1s coming in. And I remember John Maxwell saying, if that's happening, you don't have long. Your ministry's about over. And what this will do, relating with pastors, is being able to have a pastor to really tell you what he's doing in ministry in his church. Even I found out some people are still got dinosaurs.
Oh, sure.
Still doing it like they did 50 years ago.
There's a reason why God hid Moses' bones.
Yeah.
Because human nature is we'll go back to the thing from the former season because it's familiar.
Yeah.
And I wanted to touch on something else that you had mentioned is, when you have people come and people go, I think one of the greatest lessons I ever learned is and we've all had it, when somebody comes to you unprovoked and they say to you, and if you're listening, pay attention to this, if they come to you and they say, Pastor, I'm with you till the very end. I'm with you. I'm with you till death do us part.
I'll die for you.
Yeah, mark it. Within 60 days, they're gone from your ministry with no explanation. One day they're there, and the next day they're not. And there used to be a time in my ministry when somebody would do that. I'd buy into it. Man, I got people around me. And then I realized that's their swan song. They're letting me know they're going to be there. But when they start doing that, I'm with you till the very end. No, you're not.
Yeah.
You're not with me till the very end of the month.
Yeah.
And you prepare your heart not to get hard, but you learn how to live like this, to let them go so the Lord can bring the right one in. Because there's been those that I've held on to too long, tried to keep them. And then the Lord's like, let go. And when I let go, the next round of leaders that come in help us get to the next level.
Exactly.
They help me. They help the body. They help the neighborhood. And so,
Well, Robert, you're
they're not
bringing up
directing
a
you.
good point because we put people on the bus. There's a seat,
yeah.
but sometimes we put people in the wrong seat. They ought to be on the bus, but it don't mean they're in the right seat.
That's right.
They don't need to be right behind the driver most of the time.
Yeah.
Just to be honest, let's talk about that. And you're right about that. You're right that people will commit real quick and they mean well, but they have never learned the character of walking through. And that's what pastors have to deal with on a regular basis. That we have people, especially today. Well, I was looking at the statistics the other day of how many people in America really go to church versus how many people go every week. When I was a kid growing up in the 1970s, when you started in ministry, I guess, and
Shut up, dude.
in that process, people are going to church regularly because it's part of society. It's not part of society anymore.
No.
It is mentioned. So pastors deal with this on something that's crazy level because they want everybody to show up. So we do all kinds of acrobat circus style stuff to get people in instead of just being authentic and real. And we're finding people are really more interested in the real. And pastors are tired of doing those things.
Yeah.
They just want to be real.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about being good. I'm not talking about having an excellence. I'm talking about just being authentic.
Yeah. You know, as you bring that up, Errol, I was on staff that my whole job was to help pastors, and we began to do things a little differently, more so strategic plans.
Oh, sure.
Systems. Everybody needs a system, and listen, I'm all for that, man. We need to figure out how to get people smarter. But you know what? At the end of the day, I've never had a strategic plan in my life as a church. Grew that church over 700 people and 7 full-time staff people. So it's about pastoring, and people really don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
You're hitting on the right
And
thing.
how much you're out in the community. I can't stress that enough. One of our goals as the Playbook, we named it that because we all need a playbook to go to. And it may be different plays on different days. But when we come together, we can relate. My dream and my goal for this is to have a coaching group, a playbook group in many locations. Now, we can't go do those. We can't be there.
No.
But man, can we train somebody? Can we pour into, you know, some of those guys that want to start one and gather pastors in, let's just say, Plainview or Hereford, so into those guys and give them everything we know. because they're going to be a good investment.
Right.
And God loves sowing into good investments.
Well, and it goes kind of along with both places for me, whether it's with Yes Lord or Faith City. One of the things that when I first start is getting that leadership, not necessarily to emulate me, but to understand my thought process and what I believe
That's
we're
true.
supposed to be. You get them bought into the vision with the understanding of when I'm not in the room and they encounter you, they encounter the true culture of what that ministry looks like.
Yeah.
So if I'm treating behind closed doors, if I'm treating my staff bad and I'm talking rough to them and I'm treating them rough, they're going to carry that out of that room and they're going to treat the body that way.
That's good.
And so how I treat you is how you're going to treat everybody else. It's the same thing with this. How you treat another pastor is how he's going to treat another pastor.
Oh, yeah.
And so if we bring pastors in close and we can invest in them and we can sow seed into them, well, when they go back to whatever their respective city is, they're going to gather pastors together, even the hard pastors, the ones that are hard to connect with, but they're going to emulate.
Exactly
They're going
right.
to show them, hey, I don't have all the answers, but this works.
It does.
And that's why this is so vitally important, so the pastors can see that
good.
and understand, because so many of us, before we were recording, you touched on Lone Rangers. There's so many of them out there that are trying to be a Lone Ranger. Well, you can only be in ministry by yourself for so long. You'll run
That's
out of
right.
steam.
That's right.
But when I was at Errol's ministry speaking to his men, I told him, I said, many of you men are trying to be Lone Rangers.
Oh, yeah.
But what you forget is the Lone Ranger had Tonto.
Oh, yeah.
He wasn't alone either.
Right.
You've got to have people alongside of you that you can trust, that you can seek counsel from, you can seek comfort from. You can sit with. Sometimes for me, I don't need you to tell me how to fix it or where it went wrong. I already know all that. I just need to be able to sit with you and breathe for a minute and know I'm safe.
Yeah.
And as leaders and
That's
ministers, we don't always have that.
That's
Oh yeah,
exactly
you
right.
hit on something that triggered my thought here. In one of the things that happens is there's some lip service of we'll help you, we'll do this. What we've been able to accomplish in this conversation is the honor with each other. We're careful with each other. We're honoring each other. And we respect each other, and that goes a million. Men need honor anyway. I mean, we have to have that. Is a root thing in us,
Right.
and trust doesn't come accidental. It's something that after being honored, and honor is not money. Honor is not giving gifts. Honor is keeping your word with each other. And part of the conversation we have here is respect, that you speak. I'm around both of y'all enough. I'm literally around Yes Lord enough. Not only has he respected my family and had them in many times to do service with them, we've done the exact same thing with his family. And actually, it built a relationship. And I said, how do we go to the next place with this? Not because I want to be over at Robert's or he wants to be over at mine, because we're doing two different things along the same path. Yeah. But what I want to do is have a relationship that I can sit down and go, what are you doing with this?
Exactly.
And nobody but Robert and I know about that. I did that with you, Ricky, when I was we were both in another ministry, and there was a couple times I absolutely needed someone to step in and go, this is what you got to do. And I remember one particular time I was having an issue with an elder, and I got to be honest with you, I was at my end on this.
Yeah.
And I sat down, I think I had 5 elders at that time, and we had a successful ministry, but he was driving me nuts.
Yeah.
And it's because I had been in an unhealthy position, and I was spawning that, and my elders, the ones who could see that, jumped on it. And we sat on with Ricky, and I said, I want you to input, just listen and input. And this is a few years ago. And he said, well, why are you doing this? And he said, because the Lord told me. And so Ricky jumped up, and he, in his way of doing stuff, and he grabbed his belt. He goes, well, if the Lord's told us, and we're done, boys. It's all good here. Everything's good.
Oh, yeah.
We can go home.
Oh,
and,
y'all been in counseling before when they say, well, God told me. That's when I'm done counseling. Well, if God's already told you, ain't no reason for me to be here.
That's right.
But here's here's the thing. As we begin to wind down and close this off, I would love to invite you pastors to come be a part. We meet once a month, unless because of Good Friday and Easter weekend, we moved our meeting, but it's usually the second Friday of every month, so you can put it on your calendar. And I'm just going to say this, might sound a little ugly, but I'm just going to say the truth. We've invited 10 or 12, and most of them have never shown up. They've not called. You know, that's probably a character issue all into itself. But they tell me, you know, they tell Errol, we're busy. We're just too busy. You know what? We all are. We can use that. We can push that, kick that can down the road. We're all busy. You know, they're like, well, you know, I can't come. I've got something real important come up. I've got a hangnail, or I've got to rearrange my sock drawer. You know, something. Let me tell you, and I'm going to look right at you, Pastor. We need each other. Our world is split in half. Hate and there's no Republican, Democrat. It's good and evil. What better time can a pastor come together and build relationships? Because there's a time when the glory's going to fall. And they're going to be knocking our doors down. Not because we've been out fishing. It's because the Holy Spirit's going to fall. And man, they're going to need places to go. And I want to equip pastors, not by what I know, but what we know. That includes you that are not here yet. We've got seats for some of us, but we've got a seat for you.
Absolutely.
And we'll make another seat and another seat. And by that, I'll close off. Would you guys like to?
I want to just say that the Pastor's Playbook, we meet in a simple location, centralized for us. It's at 4000 Southwest 50th, Prey Amarillo building. And it's not about Prey Amarillo. It's about us doing stuff together.
Oh, yeah.
That's just where we meet.
So I have a firm belief that honor is a currency of heaven, and whatever you honor, you can have access to. And so we honor you not just as men and women leaders, but as pastors. We honor you. We want to have access to you, to come alongside of you, to not just teach lessons we've learned, but to learn from you as well.
Yeah, exactly.
We need you as much as you need us and other pastors. And so we honor you today as pastors and ministers and as men and friends. We honor you. And we just want access to the gifting that you are and what you carry. And we want to hopefully partner with you, whether it be through this avenue here, through video, or we can do it face to face. But it's important for us to have a community to breed honor amongst leaders. I think honor has been lacking from leader to leader, and in the house. I think we've dishonored our leadership for far too long, myself included. And so we repent of that. And we want to see a healthy body. We want to see a healthy bride. And so we want to just come alongside of you and partner with you.
That's good. Guys, I really appreciate you guys. I'm so thankful that I had a good friend named Brent. He began to build a fire in me to, can I just, Pastor, if you don't have something to be passionate about, if you don't have a passion and a fire burning in you, then you better find one.